Well, thank you all again for coming here tonight and enjoying the other barn. If you've never been here, I know I hadn't before we checked out the space. It's a really beautiful space. So we thank the staff here as well for letting us do this. Yeah. Obligatory, please make sure your phones are silenced at the very least. Buzzing is acceptable. The ring-a-ding-dings are not welcome here. My name is Danica Rhines. I'm the communications manager over with Columbia Association, and we just really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. The Change in Columbia Speaker Series, this is our second one, and this is all about, you're right there, Erica. This is all about recognizing the ways our community is changing and asking some questions about it. How can we be part of that? How can we positively influence that? How can we be engaged with that? How do we know what is changing? And having those conversations around it. So we're covering as many topics as imaginable. We'll get to as many as we can. And of course, CA offers some, we have some expertise on our staff as well. And we'd love to, lean into those and make sure those are accessible to everybody. And I just want to point out, by just showing up here tonight, you are engaging. So give yourself a round of applause, pat on the back, whatever you need. You are devoting your valuable time to being here, and that really says something. So thank you again so much. This is what community is all about. Education matters, coming together in this space and convening with your neighbors does matter. We hope that you stay engaged with CA and that it continues to be a resource for you to be involved and connected. Please let us know how we can do that better. We are all about feedback here. And really, this is all about the fact that Columbia is changing, okay? Any community is changing. So how do we embrace that? So we'll touch on this ideals of wellness area tonight. And we hope that you leave tonight challenged and with some fresh perspective on what this could mean for you. During the panel discussion, some of you may have submitted questions in the Q&A table over there. We'll review those and try to group them together if we got a bunch, because we are not going to have time for everything. So we'll try to group them together into themes as best we can and get everybody's answered as best we can. If a question pops in your mind during this, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll try to get you a piece of paper and a pen so you can jot it down, and we'll consider that as well and get to as many questions as we can. Hi to all of our Zoom folks as well. We are live streaming this event tonight and it will be recorded as well. So folks that couldn't make it here today can listen to the panel and be part of it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Anika Beatty-Mills, founder and publisher of Columbia Inspired Magazine. Thank you, Danica. Hello. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. It'd be weird if you couldn't. Columbia, Maryland has been ranked in 2022 as the #6 best place to live. And it's not the first time we've been on that list. Among other criteria, our focus on health and wellness in the community is a big reason for that. However, ideas have shifted in reference to how we approach living well. So today's discussion is going to be about why ideas have shifted, how they've shifted, and the changes to look forward to as we move into an era of truly taking care of our whole selves. My name, as Danica stated, is Anika Beatty-Mills. I am the publisher of Columbia Inspired Magazine. I'm an 18-year resident, a mother of 3, and a wife of 1. So just in case anybody was curious. Our publication is a digital publication, and we are focusing on health and wellness in our community, and also spotlighting people in our community that are doing amazing things. So as a former personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and a yoga instructor, when I was asked to be a part of this, I jumped at the chance. I believe it's important. And so I'd like to now introduce you to our fantastic panel of experts for the evening. I'd first like to start on my far left with Tavia Tusky. She is Columbia Association's Wellness and Fitness Director. Tavia holds a bachelor's in biology from Boston University and a Master of Science in Exercise Physiology in clinical from Northeastern University. She is an American Academy of Sports Medicine exercise physiologist with exercise is medicine credentials. Then I also have Dr. Abyssinia Tabron. She is a clinical psychologist and licensed professional counselor in DC. and Maryland with 2 decades of experience working with individuals who've experienced trauma, loss, or are struggling coping with stress. Dr. Abby has been a resident of Columbia for over 15 years and recently wrote a children's book. Some of you have it in your hands.
Mental and emotional health are all very connected in 2023. Consumers, us, want wellness to be in everyday practice, a heavy focus on authenticity and functionality. So my first question is, why do we need to revisit what living well really means? And what was wrong with the previous way we used to be? What wasn't working? Let's start with you, Shani. So I don't, coming from the perspective of the fitness industry, as an exercise physiologist, a lot of fitness was an exterior approach, very restrictive. You do a ton of exercise to achieve these kind of results, to lose a certain amount of weight, or to have X physical health benefits. Particularly coming out of the pandemic, we realized that movement is right? And the fitness industry, we really had to step up and help people have social connection, have improve their mood. We had our consumers telling us that they wanted to feel better, not just physically, but mentally. So creating a more embracing, holistic approach to health and well-being is really important to we expand beyond the physical, but also make sure that we also speak to more people. We make movement and health and well-being more accessible, and also change from just an exterior and look a certain way and be a certain way, and really make it about how you feel and about the intrinsic value. I feel better after I move. I am more connected. I also have physical benefits to that, but it really is a more holistic, embracing approach. That's great. Dr. Turan, how about you in the clinical psychologist?
And having time.
Okay.
I think that prior to the pandemic, we looked at like sort of through the lens of like we're all Americans and we like our things, we like our zip codes, we like our vacations, we like our stuff. And we kind of defined ourselves around the accumulation of things and the imagination of like a good life. When the pandemic hit and a lot of our work was shut down, we really came to confront the fact that our health is something. It didn't matter how much money you have, if you really didn't tap into your source of health. Well, you really did, your life was actually different. Furthermore, we really got to look up front and close with the meaning of connection and our emotional well-being as a larger part of our like well-being.
So I want to take this into some data, and can you share with us some of the findings that you had in the 2021 Howard County Health Assessment Survey? And also, I think what was interesting in doing that survey, not only were you looking at the county, then you were able to also juxtapose that with Columbia specifically. So what are some of the findings when it comes to our physical health?
So what we like to do, we like to sort of be data driven. We want to make sure that what we're telling you based on data. So that's why every 2 years, we collaborate with partners such as Columbia Association to do an extensive survey of residents to get a sense of like what's going on physical activity wise, healthy eating wise, what do we need to work on, what are we doing about it, what do we need to improve upon. And from the 2021 Park County Health Assessment Survey, so we looked at the data, and then we did a comparison to see how that's going to the rest of the county. So weight-wise, 1 in 2 persons, basically overweight or obese. And that's in line with what we're seeing in the county too. Physical activity wise, 82% of residents did a physical activity or exercise to raise heart rate within the past week. And so for those who did not exercise, some of the reasons that folks didn't exercise was lack of time, exercise, you're tired, and those were some of the reasons. And so these physical activity data, weight data are in line with what we are seeing in Howard County.
So when it comes to, I kind of want to dive back into how we're looking at it differently from that physical aspect of moving. When we're talking about, especially Tavia, with trying to move from what does it look like to what does it feel like, what are some of the things that Columbia Association is doing to try to help members find that sweet spot?
Yeah, so well, our clients, our community has been telling us some of the things they need. They've been voting with their feet. So for example, in group fitness classes, ever since the pandemic, we've been putting more and more mind body classes on the schedule. Even just in terms of, there was recently an instructor meeting that our group fitness team led, and the whole coaching or education component was, how do we coach and communicate and help people focus on how they feel as they move, the benefits of, I feel stronger when I do this. Instead of saying, for example, we did the training right around Thanksgiving, instead of saying, I'm gonna participate in this level of physical activity because it's gonna burn off my turkey. We talked about how that's fuel. That's fuel for your strong body. Yeah. We're really excited to move because we're gonna go enjoy our turkey or tofurkey, and we're gonna use that as fuel. So our clients have been telling us they want, we've been adding things like recover sessions. Our trainers have been focusing on recovery, creating shorter workouts, giving people options. We've been doing things like walk with the doc, being out in nature, having our medical advisory board lead walks that are free and open to the public, where they share a little healthy health topic. And then we have that social engagement out in nature, walking and moving. And also, one of the great things, one of our topics was sleep. As soon as people started walking, the conversations with the physician and the group about sleep, there's something about moving and talking that just creates a comfort for people. So that's another example of the ways that we've been changing and evolving with our community in terms of meeting their wellness needs.
That's great. I want to take that conversation, Dr. Abby, to help us understand how movement is important for our mental health. What's that connection that's happening in our brain when we start to move?
Yeah. I mean, when we experience stress, it's not just in one part of our body, it's in our it takes over the whole organism. And so movement really goes a long way to kind of healing or helping our bodies rebound from stress, anxiety, and even trauma. In fact, when our bodies are in movement, you'll hear us talk about exercise versus movement. That's intentional. Like, we don't want to just focus on that word exercise. A lot of times that can even feel a bit intimidating to people, me included, but almost everybody can engage in some form of movement, and what we found is that our brains actually experience chemical benefits when we're moving. So we see that in like dopamine, which is like in the reward center of our brain. We see that in serotonin. Serotonin acts to smooth over anxiety, depression, and mood, and we see that in oxytocin, okay? And you'll hear that often called the like bonding hormone, but oxytocin shows up when we feel attached and connected to people. all of those really work to build our bodies into more resilient, in a more resilient shape. The other thing that happens when we're stressed is that we kind of build up cortisol. And cortisol is it's good if like you're in a fight, flight, freeze situation. If you're under threat, you need that cortisol to kind of work with your brain and your body to get activated to avoid that threat and figure it out. But if your body is in a constant state of just bathing in cortisol, then you are really doing damage to damage is actually happening to your body. Movement, exercise, mindfulness activities. So don't underestimate the power of like yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, in terms of restoring that. All of those reduce cortisol in our body.
I was going to add to that, just in reference to when we're talking about yoga and being able to release, sometimes just sitting there, you don't realize how tight you are until someone says, stop clenching your teeth, right? Or let go of your hands. So I do think that a lot of times we don't know we're in that space to be able to kind of release and let go. So then my question on top of that would be, when we're talking about time frame, especially when we're talking about movement or even in exercise, we're often told longer is better or harder is better. And it seems like we're moving away from that. And how long can it be that if I do something for 10 minutes, is it going to help me?
Yeah, it's going to help you. It's the doing that's important. It's the being committed, intentional, purposeful in the doing. You all have heard that saying, practice makes. That ain't true. That's not true. If you keep practicing something the wrong way, that is not going to make it perfect. That is just going to entrench the way that you're doing it imperfectly. Practice actually makes permanent. Okay. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So if you are doing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're committing to that, that is going to get wired into your way of functioning, and your body is going to benefit from it, and your body's going to respond to it,
right.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that from personal experience, I had to start doing that, giving myself some kind of routine. All the little self-care things, the memes, like, do this for you, do this. That's real. And I had to start doing that too, where at night I realized I wasn't sleeping well. So I started having this little shower routine, and it involved steam, and it involved a nice little essential oil. And then one night my husband let all the steam out of the bathroom. So we almost left each other, but it was fine. We're still together. It's fine.
Anika, can I just add quickly to that?
Love it.
There's some really good, there's several studies that show that even just like few minutes can help, but 10 minutes of aerobic conditioning, just aerobic movement, can help improve your mood. You have 20 to 30 minutes and you can do some aerobic conditioning. Not only can you improve your mood acutely in that moment, like you feel immediately better afterwards, but that can stay with you for a sustained period throughout your day. So talk about 20, 30 minutes of moving. I feel good now, but that's going to carry me. It can literally change the course of your day. And there are benefits. So we talk about, we want to make sure you can move, that it's accessible, but there are benefits to exercise. Some people do like, if you're training for something, there's also, if you're doing exercise and you're really focused on a goal, there's something meditative about that as well. So for some people, we really don't like exercise and we just want them to move and find ways to enjoy moving. For other people, exercise is really good for them. It helps them mentally, physically. So there are benefits to doing both, but eat like a little something, even we call it neat, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, just moving throughout your day. That's good for you, but something's better than nothing. But even 10, 20, 30-minute bouts of aerobic conditioning have some really good benefits.
So that speaks to them being able to say, like, do what works for you, right? Oftentimes there's this one size fits all in reference to, should you CrossFit? Do you have to hit? Do you got to do yoga 3 times a day, 4 times a week? So then just finding the opportunities to do something that makes you feel good. So I felt that was important to get across. So I'm glad that you said that, because yeah, absolutely.
And then if you think about it, like so many times we feel like the stuckness of life and like, um, that's hard, you know, there's something about moving that is amazing metaphor for our emotional lives as well. If you could put one foot in front of the other, then you can also like get to that next step in life that might be more emotional or relational, you know, or financial. But it really is a really powerful metaphor for just how you got to just keep on moving.
Right. Rena, let's take some of the data that you found. The pandemic's had a profound effect, obviously, on our mental health. If we dive a little deeper into the data, can you give us some more information on Columbia and Howard County?
Absolutely. And so when we're going back to the conversation of talking about movement, I too, I too would normally say, you know, to my kids, practice makes perfect, but I was scolded by my daughter once, and she was like, no, practice does not make perfection.
Yeah.
Practice makes progress. I was taught in school, and you cannot tell me practice makes perfect. So kids are learning too, and they're like sponges, and they're helping us. So I'm just letting them work with me. Okay.
That's
So
great.
going back to the data, so I mentioned about physical activity, how we're in line with Howard County in general. It's not the case for mental health. I'm not able to say that. In that Columbia residents are more likely to report feelings of depression or stress by about 5 to 9% higher compared with Howard County residents. And those specific attributes include having little interest or pleasure, being down, depressed or hopeless, being nervous, anxious, or on edge, and unable to stop worrying. So those were some of the data points that we have seen.
So in reference to those data points, when we're talking about how people are saying, were you able to also talk about how they are dealing with these issues that they're having? Was there any data that was how they were actually navigating?
Yeah, and so we also did focus groups to see like, okay, how are people coping with feelings of mental health? We hear a lot about the struggles with the pandemic and the negative effects that COVID had on individuals' mental health. And what we've found is that people have gotten together with others, shared experiences, and that has helped them a lot, but it's still a struggle. It's nice to say to folks, move more, it'll be good for you. But then if they don't have the motivation, it's a little bit tricky. How do you get to the point of being motivated to actually move? And then we're also saying move rather than walk, because with individuals with disabilities, they may not be able to walk. How do they go out, and how do they also move at the same time in the manner that they're able to? And with their disabilities, you know, it may be stressful for them. It's hard for them to have sort of that motivation. So all of those things are things to consider. Also, with Columbia and Howard County, with the various cultures. Folks, different cultures may not like exercise as other cultures may, but they may like go for walks with grandparents or parents. So kind of like thinking about it in that perspective to make sure that we are including everyone. I think it's important.
Because we're so diverse, what are some of the challenges culturally that we may be running into when it comes to talking about mental health and movement? You talked about movement just now, but also I think there's an opportunity for us to kind of shed the light culturally how difficult some of these conversations can really be.
Right. So we go out a lot in the community, and we try to talk. We talk with parents, we talk with youth, and we hear a lot of times that parents do not know how to have conversations with their kids about mental health. We hear that kids feel that their parents don't understand where they're coming from when they're expressing certain feelings or certain struggles with their mental health. Adults too are struggling with their mental health, exacerbated by COVID. And specific populations we know are more adversely affected by by the impact, negatively by the impact of mental health. And so what we're trying to do is to normalize these conversations around mental health in various cultures, and for us to just talk to each other, have a conversation and say, you know, how are you doing? It's okay to ask. We have, the health department has a campaign, It's Okay to Ask, where we're trying to start the conversation, get people to talk about mental health and the struggles and what you're going through, what you're feeling, to kind of normalize, because everyone is going through struggles one way or the other. And how do we just knock the barriers down, the stigma down, and just bring it all out in the open?
I think that's a great segue, Dr. Abby, to you about how we talk to our kids, our family members, whether it be we need to talk to someone or they need to talk to us. How do we lay that groundwork for them to be able to be comfortable to have conversations? And my daughter's 13, and most of the things that she does, I don't understand, and that's because she's 13. Yeah. But, you know, I also did not go to school during a pandemic and go from 5th grade to 8th grade. Right. You know, how do I talk with her, giving her that opportunity to tell me how she feels, or vice versa? How do I make myself be able to say something to someone else like I need help?
And I'm going to answer that but before that, I just want to address the whole cultural stigma, or, you know, when we talk about that, sometimes we think about, oh, well, cultural, we mean racial and ethnic minorities, but like even within the conversation of asking for help, like even men and women, you know, there's a whole culture around manhood and boyhood in the American, you know, landscape that oftentimes says, you know, if you're a male, you don't ask for help in certain ways. That shouldn't be bothering you. And for females, there's a strong culture around shouldering burdens and being caretakers and, you know, kind of sucking it up, so to speak. So it's not just around racial and ethnic minorities. It's like every way in which we are ourselves, we're unique, we're different, kind of holds some sort of stigma around, you know, accessing help. In general, for all of us, we just need to do better at opening those conversations around, I need you, I need somebody, I need help right now, I need somebody to talk to, I need, you know, we just need to do better at that. But as it relates to children, I like my favorite subject, I love kids. I'm a big kid. I feel like there is a lot of misunderstanding about the emotional lives of children. You know, I call it like the blob and the brat. You know, a lot of us don't really realize there are two major shifts and spurts of brain development. They occur in early childhood, like 0 to 3-ish, and then they occur in adolescence and early adulthood. And so our research has shown us that, like, really, girls don't really stop their brain development till around 23, 24, 25, and males not until upwards of 29. Does it make sense to some people? Coming together.
Raised a couple boys. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. And so we'll see that in different risk-taking behaviors and different, you know, just decision-making things, and just the time that it takes to develop this, you know, organism right here. It's tremendous. A lot of work goes into it. But the beautiful part about that is that that means that essentially we have these two amazing growth periods to be able to impact how our brains actually are shaped, the architecture, and how they're developed. So even if you've had some emotional injuries, you've had COVID for 3 years, our brains are made in a way where the neurons that fire together, they can wire together. And because they do that, if you feed your brain healthy signals of care and stimulation, then your brain will respond to that in ways that also bring well-being into our lives, okay? And I know that I said that for children and adolescents, but really this is something that is with us throughout our lifespan. It's just not as like ripe and juicy as during like early childhood and adolescence, but this is with us. This is the gift that our brain gives us throughout our entire lifespans. We all have the opportunity to be able to latch on to healthy activities and practices in a way that are going to really strengthen our brain and our overall health and well-being.
That's great. I want to add to that, Tavia, talking about physical wellness and how you've seen it be effective in working with the mental health of some of your members, or what they've expressed to you in doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think when our, we keep talking about COVID, but I mean, that was a perfect, I mean, it just brought everything to the forefront. When people started coming back and seeing us, they were telling us how important it was that they were moving with us, that it made them feel better. I can speak for myself on the days where I don't move, and it doesn't have to be a workout. On the days where I'm not moving, I'm pretty grumpy. Right. I'm self-aware that I need to, for my own mental health, for my own mood, I need to move. And I think we're talking about that more with our community. Even for example, we always do rate of perceived exertions. Now we're talking about rate of perceived mood. How do you feel at the start of when you join us? How do you feel? How do you feel when you leave? So I think we're having the conversations. This is a conversation we're trying to bring it to the forefront. It's okay to talk about it, and physical activity can help with anxiety. It can help with depressive symptoms. It can help improve your mood, both acutely and, throughout the day. And you keep doing it over and over again, long term.
When we're talking about being together in that group of people, I think we should talk about how important socialization is in a world of now Peloton and Echelon and whatever other ones they have. You can work out by yourself for a long time, or you can buy it and hang your laundry on it, which people also do. So let's talk about the success that people are having in their well-being, not just in their physical, etc., but in their well-being as a person when it comes to socialization. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so we can talk about within the four walls of a fitness facility, right? We had people come back and tell us, again, I'm here because I have coffee with my friends at athletic club every single morning, and I'm here for the coffee. I say I'm here for the coffee, but I'm really here for all the people that I connect with, the staff that say hello to me, the people that I walk by and they smile at me. Right. But then we also have the, participation in group training and group fitness. Just the people that walk through the facilities and say hi to each other on machines and talk to our staff. But even outside of the four walls of our facilities, you can see it, when people go for a walk together. Walk with the Doc has been very popular for us, getting people together that maybe are craving connection and looking to build relationships with their neighbors in the community and move together. I mean, it feels good to move with other people, right? We know it feels good to be with other people generally, right? In terms of mental health. I mean, the pandemic taught us that. But also it's really good for the physical body. This is my plug for this book. The Surgeon General wrote this book together, which I recommend everybody read. This is all about how social wellness is really important to the physical body, the mental health. And just some of the statistics in here, just over and over again, talk about how social connection is really vital. I mean, we know that probably good for the pandemic taught us we needed each other, right? Our mental health didn't feel good, but it's really important for the physical too. And sometimes I think, particularly in the fitness industry, or when you talk about the physical, you focus on your cholesterol and mortality. And, but, you know, this one study in particular really, I think just, you know, a study from 2009, and again, it's been over and over again, a study that showed strong social relationships, individuals with strong social relationships are 50% less likely to die prematurely than people with weak social relationships. And that is greater than the risk associated with obesity, excess alcohol consumption, and lack of exercise. That's my, like that, I thought when I heard that, and again, studies are showing over and over again, social connection is so important to all these physical factors that we tend to focus on. And I think the pandemic taught us that anecdotally, and more, I think that is going to be part of the conversation as we talk about wellness. And hopefully it continues to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, go ahead, Rena.
And I'd like to add to what Tavia was saying. I know Columbia Association, in Columbia, there are a lot of trails to explore, and there are a lot of opportunities to move and explore together. State parks are great to explore with family. So I did want to put a plug for that, and also kind of like being outdoors with others, like gardening together, community gardens, and those opportunities that exist to kind of like move and smell the fresh air and the herbs and the gardens, and to explore, I think also goes a long way.
There's a lot of opportunity here to be able to get outside and walk. Now, I think things are out there to kill me, but I will walk outside for a little while for some air. Things like to kill me. Dr. Abby, I do want to kind of just dive back into when we're talking about children and socialization. I think many of us.
Can I just say one thing about
you can
Peloton?
say all the
Because,
things
like,
you want.
I have my Peloton.
I love my Peloton.
Okay. So, how many of you are introverts? Is anybody else an introvert? Yeah, like I'm a textbook introvert. Like I'm like deep end introvert. So I feel like I don't need you. Like I need my remote, my 90-day fiance, I don't need that. So, but what I learned during the pandemic was like, oh my God, I need people, you know? I joined a water aerobic class. I'm like not even getting that much exercise out of it. But guess what happened? Like I missed a class, and like one of the ladies were like, where were you on Wednesday? And that like warmed my whole heart. And I was like, people are looking for me, you know, like I'm mad, like I matter, you know, like just showing up in my little Speedo matters, you know? And, you know, I didn't know that about myself before the pandemic, that I too have needs for social connection. And don't get it twisted. Even though it might seem like you're by yourself on a Peloton, they're smarter than that. You're not by yourself. You have somebody in your face. You have a group of people on that other, you are taking class. You have a camera looking at you so they can connect with you. They know the science already behind the need for connection, so that even though it's in your own home, they have figured out a way for you to be connected with people in like British Columbia and like South Africa, and like that's all happening. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, and the lady that I beat in California who was racing against me, that she didn't know she was racing against me, I won.
Yeah.
And so way to go, lady. We had a good time.
It was not about that.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay, sorry.
And can I just add to that? I mean, I really do. I mean, I think that the creating access and making movement fit in people's lives, right? Whether it be a Peloton, whether it be training with a CA trainer virtually, right? We can go with you on vacation. So moving with people, meeting them where they are, you know, whether it be on-demand content, whether it be a virtual session, you know, it's great if someone recognizes you in that social relationship. That really is important. But again, I think that is one of the things that came out of the pandemic is people learned how to use some tools to bring the way that they like to move with them and fit it into their schedule, make it accessible.
Right.
So I think that is not that the pandemic was great for a lot of stuff, but it did
Yeah.
get people to kind of flip the
Amazing.
script on that a little bit and think out like I don't physically have to be there all the time, although there are real benefits to being right next to somebody and
Right.
smiling and seeing that, having someone say, I missed you at aqua class.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was a great point from both of you in reference to doing something that you may not think you needed to do and then realizing that like maybe you should try it, right? Just to see if that's going to feed you. I know for me, I like to work out by myself. I don't like to talk to people. I like all those things. So I'm you when I work out. But when I went to the gym to just go lift, I wasn't talking to anyone, but there were people in there. And I remember walking in saying, oh, okay, I missed this part. So when backtracking a little bit to how we help our children being able to re-socialize. They were doing Zoom classes. No one was turning their cameras on. All of the parents, especially us in our 40s, were like, you didn't get that. We're really trying to figure out how we were going to help them because we couldn't understand it. It's not something we could relate to. So now trying to get back into what would be quote unquote normal and having them back in school, I know kids are struggling with that. How can we help them and what have you seen?
That's the call I always get, like almost every day. It's like my child has changed. Children actually they require a certain amount of socialization to help them grow. Like that's just what they need. Do you know that there's like babies that actually expire, they die in the hospital because there's something called failure to thrive. Otherwise healthy babies, but because their lack of socialization and connection is so extreme, they actually just kind of, just diminish physically. That's how important connection is for us. Like we are hardwired for connection. You've heard that probably from Brene Brown a ton of times.
Right.
So when our children were not in school and not around each other and not learning and growing from each other, that was really like a deficit in their environment. And that was going to be felt as like a strain on their emotional kind of well-being and even their physical well-being. And on top of that, in the United States of America, the vast majority of children receive mental health services from schools. So when schools were sort of essentially shut down, that also shut down access to care. Given that, I think it's incredibly important to realize that there are not going to be enough mental health providers to take care of the needs of all of the children that have need at this point in time. That's when all of us have to get educated so that we can act as interventionists and act as supporters in the lives of all of our children, not just the children in our nuclear household, but the children in our community and our larger society. We have to become educated on what we're seeing, being able to normalize opening conversations around emotional and mental health so that that doesn't seem like something that's taboo or scary. That has to be part of like kids learn how to brush their teeth because it's part of their dental hygiene. They also learn the language of emotional well-being and stress and heartache, so that they can talk to us, effectively, and that we can help them process that.
So I have, my daughter has anxiety. So one of the things that I do with her is when I tell her that she has to tell me what's wrong, but we don't have to talk about it in depth. I just need to know what's wrong because I'm the mommy and you need to tell me what's wrong so I can care for you, but you don't have to talk to me about it. Now, 90% of the time, once she finally tells me what it is, then we can have a conversation, but I don't press her for that conversation. Are there some other tips that you can give us that may be helpful in being able to establish a conversation?
I think that in our culture, we put a lot of emphasis on being able to verbalize. So tell me, but we also have to understand that we also communicate in nonverbal ways. We are equipped as human beings to communicate very effectively
Mm.
in nonverbal ways. Now, when it comes to children, oftentimes they don't have the developmental like understanding yet or foundation to even know how to communicate certain things.
Mhm.
And so we have to open up the door for being able to recognize how they communicate in a bunch of different ways. You know, so sometimes that's picture drawing, sometimes that's play, otherwise known as play therapy, but sometimes it's just play. You don't have to be a therapist to kind of play with a child and kind of hear what they're trying to communicate. Sometimes they communicate in anger, you know, and so it's important to not just rush to punishment, but rush to understanding and rush to inquiry, like what's going on, you know.
So really being able to take some cues from them and paying attention. The reason I can ask her that question is because I realize when she's retracting and giving her that space to be able to do it. So being able to really understand is a huge piece of that. I want to move us into some nutrition conversation because it's all about wellness. Dr. Abigail handed that microphone right on over. But I do want to briefly talk about, you know, we've done the physical and we've done some mental health and they're all intertwined. But can you share with us what some of the data says about how we're handling nutrition here in Columbia/Howard County?
So with regards diet, like about 43% of the residents eat of Columbia residents eat fruit less than once per day or never. 36% of residents eat vegetables that aren't fried less than once per day or never. Regarding soda, 54% of residents drink regular soda and 44% of residents' children drink regular soda. And these data are in line with Howard County data. So it's not anything like really remarkable. It's not that it's great,
Right.
but it's like not tremendously different
There's
from
not a big
Howard.
difference between them.
However, with the same is not that cannot be said for food insecurity. So in Howard County, nearly 1 in 7 residents reported concern about running out of food before they could afford more, while in Columbia, it's 1 in 5 residents is food insecure. So I did wanna point that out. So as we are talking about food and eating fruits and eating vegetables, it's good to keep at the back of our minds too that it's also about access to fruits and vegetables, affordability. There are many different components that we try to work with our partners to increase that access before we can say, oh, do this or
Right,
you know, do
before you can tell them what to do. When it comes to that, when it comes to food as fuel, what are some of the things that you're seeing that members are doing, Tavia, in reference to being able to be not only prepared to work out, right? Because obviously coming in without having any kind of fuel can be detrimental, right? What are you seeing as, or what are you recommending for some of your members? Or are they coming and telling you like, I didn't have my shake today, I can't? How about them?
Well, I think, I mean, I think we're talking, so if someone wants something very prescriptive, right, they're going to meet with a nutritionist.
Right.
But if we want some general good, healthy tips, right, we're
Right.
talking about, you know, what are you coming, like you said, are you eating whole grains? Are you eating to the point where we have some great graphics over there on mindful eating.
Right.
Are you coming in? Have you talked to someone? Like, if you feel like you're not getting the right mix of things, have you talked to your medical provider about that? Or have you talked to a nutritionist? And then we could talk about general, are you making good choices with your food?
Right.
Are you eating to the point where you're full, not eating too much?
Right.
And we do want, we try not to be prescriptive, right? Because we're not doing one-on-ones and we're not nutritionists.
Right.
But when people are showing up, particularly, this time of year, we do get a lot of new people that are recommitting, right?
Right.
Which is, I love everyone recommitting every single year. I'm eternally optimistic that maybe, even if they're just, maybe we don't see them as frequently, they're taking their exercise. I always think it's because they're taking their exercise outside. in the nicer weather, which
Very
yeah.
optimistic.
and I do, I'm going to believe that. And they come back and visit us in the fall. But you know, we talk with them about, you know, did you eat? You know, I can see, like, I still teach group fitness classes, and I can see if someone does not look like they had food
Anything to do with
before they
that.
eat. Did you eat today?
Right.
We want you to come in and we want you to feel like you have energy
Right.
for your movement. We want you to have a good time, right? If you don't have the right fuel in your body to feel good as you move, you need to have something. So, and we do have, you know, some of our one of our trainers is nutritionist, so we can always get people to the right place.
So there's some resources that people have to
Yes.
be able to come and talk about,
Yes.
even if it's very general,
Yes.
right? Obviously, you need a nutritionist or a registered
Mhm.
dietitian to be able to give something that's specific.
Yes.
But I feel like oftentimes, because there's so much noise in the diet space, people often forget that diet actually just means how you eat versus it being something you go on. So in being able to be more mindful about eating, I think we were talking about mindfulness, Dr. Abby. Is there any tips or connections when it comes to mental wellness and our eating and what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, like, you know, I had a good mom. But you know, she wasn't the type that was just gonna be like, I love you so much. But like she fed us, and like somehow along the way the connection between food and love got laid down. And you know, so when we talk about food being fuel, like food is also like family. And food, you know, we have a lot of like we have a, you know, strong powerful relationships with food. And so it's not just as simple as like eat your grains and you're like you drink your smoothies and stuff. There's sometimes you have to unlearn how, you know, intertwined your relationship is with food for the benefit of your health and your well-being, you know.
Right.
You know, and we have to be willing to talk about that, you know, to people and for ourselves, because if we just kind of look on the food chart and say do this, like we're gonna be missing this opportunity to understand ourselves on a deeper level as it relates to like why I make the choices I make with my plate and my fork.
And can I also just add too, Rena, some of the work Rena and her team have done in the community. I mean, Rena, we were talking the other day about nutrition in the community, and sometimes if you're too prescriptive about how people eat, it doesn't take into account the culture. And so you were talking about some of the ways that the conversations that we're having with the community about how to make better choices, but still eat what is part of your culture. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So what we have seen is that, you know, it's kind of moving away from, oh, this is what you need to eat, this is what you can, you know, here's a recipe, follow the recipe. But then if, like, I'm not used to eating quinoa or tofu, and you know, it's kind of hard for someone to actually consume those. And there are little things that you can actually do, like little goals you can make for yourself. You know, start small, maybe, you know, decrease a little bit of carbs or rice, or switch from like white rice to like brown rice. Simple things I think you can make to be a little bit more realistic and set those realistic goals, rather than say, okay, yeah, eat more fruits. Well, we all would like, I would assume we all would like to eat more fruits and vegetables, but you know, kind of start small. Maybe I'll eat one piece of fruit at lunchtime for 2 days. Then the next week I'll try 3 days. You know, little things I think would go a long way. I want to drink more water. Well, maybe I'll start by drinking a glass of water during lunch for 2 days, and then 3 days, kind of like slowly, and send those goals for ourselves and keeping track of those. I think would go a long way. And like also when you're stressed out, you know, you turn to a bag of chips, or you turn to something sweet, and you know, what else can we do? Can we knit? Can we read a book? Can we do something else to get our mind off? But then sometimes it's okay. It's okay to cut ourselves some slack now and again, not to be too hard on ourselves. A long day at work or in traffic or something, as folks are going out a little bit more. It's okay. The chips is okay for one.
You mean it.
The other thing that you can do, herbs are amazing. They smell good. You can add those to your food. You can plant those. You can freeze them. You can plant a garden. You can buy. You can do lots of stuff to like spice up your own food. Like if you're used to making the same thing, add ginger, garlic, add a little bit of herbs, a little bit different things to kind of be creative and experiment and all of that stuff. So the whole point is to kind of start small and just keep at it, cut yourself some slack. And I think, it'll be good. I think we got this.
I think all I heard was that I can open that bag of chips and go. No, I think it's great because we often don't talk about how we are when we talk about managing food, all of us are like, yeah, we like to eat, but being able to start small versus recreating your entire diet, right? January 1, you have now gotten rid of all bread. I'm very sorry, that's terrible. But how long are you going to be able to do that, right? How do we find ways to do things that are sustainable for us? And I think we've been kind of indoctrinated into a culture of things that are not sustainable. So that small, change versus buying the gallon jug that has the pretty color and all the like drink now words on it, just get the glass of water, right? And be able to give yourself a break.
And some folks may not like the taste of water, and it's okay to add a little bit of stuff. Cut a piece of lemon, orange, spice up the water. Even we've heard that a lot from community members. That works amazingly.
Yeah, that's great.
Be creative.
Yeah, I like mine when I can get to the spa and they give me the little lemon. Come on, you need a lemon water. It's my spa in my house. I don't get to go. Anyway, so here's a question that I think that we need to kind of just wrap this up in a bow in the sense of, we've talked about the data, we've talked about some of the things that we're seeing in reference to change. How well positioned really is Columbia as a community to be able to kind of provide opportunities for everyone? I know we've given some tips, but I do think it's a great way to kind of just re-wrap this up and say, how well equipped are we? I doubt this is not the end of the world. We can figure this out. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Rena, I'll start with you.
So we in Columbia, there are a lot of resources. There are a lot of information. There's so much, and I think sometimes folks may be overwhelmed with all the information, social media, news, and it's very easy to get inundated with all of the information. But what we can do is basically help each other out. You as residents, as Dr. Abby mentioned, that there's not enough mental health providers, psychologists, there are not enough mental health professionals to deal with all of the struggles that we are seeing mental health wise. And that's why within our community, you all can be ambassadors. You all can be trained in mental health first aid. You all can be trained to have the conversations about mental health, to help your family, to help your neighbors. I think that goes a long way to have these ambassadors, these champions that you can help us, you can help the community, and in the end, I think it helps you to thrive and feel better. So I think if we look within ourselves, we have it within ourselves. And I think on that, I think that's a relatively positive note that we have that strength to do it. I know, Annika, you mentioned, you started out by saying the wonderful wonderful information about Colombia. And I know some of the data that I shared may not be as wonderful,
Right.
but on the brighter side, that we can make health one of those things.
Wonderful things. That's right.
We can do it together.
That's right.
We can put health up there. So when the next time, hopefully, when you mention your information, hopefully you're able to include health as one
That's
thing.
right. Oh, absolutely. That is definitely what we will continue to do. And in reference to Columbia Association, I know we have our walking paths. I know we have the ability to be able to come to some of the classes. Are there some more resources that we can access?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm not from Colombia. I'm an import, and I think we are truly blessed in this community to have so much green space that C is the steward of, and to have all these pathways that connect. I mean, you can roll, bike, run, walk. We have all these communities and villages where you can build relationships and get to know your neighbor and support your community. So I just think the infrastructure of the way that Columbia is built and the infrastructure here, we are really blessed. Now, there are certainly areas of opportunity. We always have the opportunity to get to know our neighbors more and connect more. But I think some of the things like our Lakefront Live that we're getting excited to do over the summer again, and I know we're going to have outdoor movement experiences where we get together and on a Friday night, families, all ages, we get together and we dance. Over the summer outside in nature together with people that maybe we know, maybe we don't know, but we're all dancing together and we're all having a great time. Or we're gonna, we walk with a medical professional. So there's a lot. I mean, you certainly can come visit us at one of our many facilities, and our team is so. I mean, the individuals that I am blessed to work with every day, truly, they love connecting with people, and they love helping people find other people. Connection, but also finding ways to enjoy moving. I mean, that is really from the front desk to our, the whole everyone that is part of our community programs and services team. We are so excited to have people find ways to enjoy moving, build relationships, challenge your brain in new ways, and improve your mood. So please visit us in our services, whether you're a member or community member, but also, again, we're getting ready to do a bunch of stuff in good weather outside. So keep checking columbiaassociation.org. Stay tuned because there's all kinds of good stuff on deck, and we are super excited to help people engage with us and each other.
So with that being said, we mentioned the villages. I wanted to just ask this real quick. How many of you know you have like a specific village that you live in? So that's not 100%. So oh, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. She was like, I knew that there were villages. Don't count me out. For those that may be online and don't know, you need to check where you're living. If you're living in Owen Brown, you live in a village, they have a newsletter. And that newsletter lets you know what's happening in your community and the things that they're putting on. So if you're not on your village newsletter, you should be, because that information gets disseminated and they all have their own activities to be able to be involved. So that way you can't say, I didn't know. I am a transport as well. I've been here for 18 years and I had no idea for 10 years that was even a thing. I was just shepherding people back and forth to school, but I had no idea. And so it's extremely important for you to be engaged in the community so you know what's out there to be able to help you. And so I have this last question that I want to ask you all before we get to some of the audience questions. And we'll start with you, Dr. Abby. What are some of the things that you do for self-care? How do you take care of yourself?
Well, we know that I put the Speedo on.
We know that.
Okay.
Speedo, yes, check.
Yes. And I I'll give a plug to my yoga teacher also in Ellicott, Daniel Byers, but I love a good restorative yoga, like because of the work I do, I need things that help my nervous system just kind of calm down a bit. And so I love yoga. I love TV. And
it's okay to take care of yourself with 90 Day Fiance. Nothing wrong with that. And for those of you that may not know what restorative yoga is, that is where you are in positions where my mom says it's just laying down, but it's not just laying down. It's nice to lay down, but you're in positions that allow your body to relax. So again, that opportunity to release the tension in your body. If you are someone that does move, or even if you don't move a lot, restorative yoga is great. And so I just wanted to make sure that we all understood what that was.
And you know what? It's still like engagement. You
Correct.
still have to engage.
Yeah, you're not asleep.
Right. You have to engage it's actually harder than a lot. Like it's harder than just running on a treadmill, to tell
Yeah.
you the truth. You have to be so intentional about how you engage to disengage for the benefit of
Right.
your mind and body. So
That's exactly right. How about you, Rena? What do you do to take care of yourself?
So before I mention, I forgot to mention that folks can get involved with the Howard County Local Health
Yes.
and Coalition effort, our work groups, all our efforts in the community. Feel free to check us out at hclhig.org. Tavia, by mentioning CA Columbia Association, I'm like, oops, I forgot to say that.
And I'm going to put a plug in for LHIC. They connect so many. Go check out their resources. There are so many amazing resources that they share from the community. So please go check out LHIC.
Thank you so much. NCA is a partner with us, and we work collaboratively with organizations and residents alike. So in terms of what I do when I'm at work, we have this little walk-in group, so we would get together and walk around the health department building like 3 times, and that's a mile, and we talk about all sorts of stuff, wonderful stuff besides work, and it's really good. And sometimes if the weather is not nice outside, we would go check on each other, have these conversations like on group chat, on Teams and stuff. We would check in on each other, hey, how's it going? Or send a little happy Friday, a little message of encouragement to each other. And we find that that helps us connect with each other, but also helps us, go through the days.
That's awesome. How about you, Tavia?
I am a person that needs to move for my mental health and for the mental health of everyone around me. So I prioritize moving, and I am an introvert, and sometimes when I'm moving, I don't want to talk to anybody, but I like to be around other people. And I also am very motivated by music. So sometimes if I'm moving, I just want to be, moving outside in nature by myself, listening to music. Other times it really is, I teach dance classes, and I get to party with people in Columbia that I love, and we get to move together, and it doesn't feel like exercise. It just feels like a party. The other thing, I really love being out in nature with my husband and my son. We look forward to tent camping, and I specifically go places where I can't get cell phone reception.
Oh,
It's amazing. Or I let my cell phone battery die. And being out in nature with my family and social connection, and just really tuning out and keeping things simple and moving while we're there too.
Yeah, that's great. I ask that because oftentimes we'll be in panel situations like this and no one knows what we do. So you're not human necessarily until they find out like, oh, you do things that I like to do. So thank you for that.
What do you do?
Besides beat the lady in California on the Peloton? Honestly, meditation has been my new jam. And it used to be very difficult for me because I used to think that you have to be completely blank in your mind. But what it has done for me is when I allow it to just run, I can eventually kind of let things fall away, and it has given me the opportunity to be able to be still. I struggle with being still. And so, and then I put it on a timer too, because I really struggle being still. So what it does is it gives me that opportunity to kind of just leave things as they are. And I will tell you, when I started telling my family that I need this 10 minutes, it made such a big difference, because everyone is used to kind of knocking on the door, and typically mommy is the one that they walk right past daddy and come ask, like, you don't see him? You walk right past him and ask you. And so, and my kids are athletic. They even travel up the stairs to come find me. So I have to tell them, like, this is my 10 minutes. And when I started guarding my time and being very intentional about guarding my time, it changed my ability to be able to then engage, right? And to be able to say, like, okay, I took a second and now I'm here. So that is what I do. I had an answer. Danica, we're gonna take some of the questions that we had. Oh, we just had one. Man, we are so good. Oh yeah, yeah. Let me see. This question is, if you see a wellness need not being met in the community, what's the first step in getting an appropriate program in place? Ooh, that's a good question. What do you say, Rena?
We see this a lot.
Hmm.
Actually, as we are going out in the community, we know transportation is a barrier. We know mobility is a barrier. We're trying to meet the residents where they are, collaborate with our partners to bring services rather than folks come to us. And we are seeing gaps. We are seeing a lot, and sometimes they're quick fixes, and sometimes they're not. And so we try to do investigation, figure out like what is there, what can be done, and sometimes we're not able to do it ourselves. So then we tap into our partners who would either be able to help us or connect us with someone. But what's important is that all of our partners, there's a tendency, no one is always like, oh, don't ask me anything or ignore my emails. People are always like so willing to help, so willing to respond to emails, so willing to jump in to help. So that has been amazing. So it's a process, but we love feedback and we love to look for opportunities to improve and to fill those gaps. There are a lot of gaps out there, but we try to work collaboratively and then say, okay, did this work? You know, what else do we need to do? Who else do we need to speak with?
So as a resident, if I see something not being met, can I send some information to you or email LHIC and say, listen, is there XYZ in the community, or I don't see this, can you help us?
Absolutely. And our LHIC is within our health department, and within our health department, there's an email Ask Health that goes directly to our communications department, and they would channel it in the right direction to make sure that every question gets a response, and that we work to address any sort of issues, any sort of questions that they are. We like to make sure that we are able to cover everything as much as possible.
That's awesome. Okay, we got a couple. Awesome. If anyone else has any other ones, you can get your question over to Danica. Let me see. Wait a minute. With inflation and general cost of eating healthy in America being so high, how do we create access to healthier eating in our lower income communities? Buying 6 items at Whole Foods or David's Markets is David's Natural Market is $60. Yes, Whole Foods, sometimes you just leave with 2 things in that bag. So I think this is another one for you, Rena. How do we help within our lower income communities?
So with our LHIC, we recently formed a food security committee as a work group to address the food insecurity needs. What you are hearing is the high food insecurity, the cost. We are hearing a lot about the cost, and it's like so many issues. We have older individuals who are not able to prepare the meals, individuals with disabilities who are not able to prepare the meals. Columbia has food pantries. In Howard County, we have a list of the food pantries on our website, on our information that are available for individuals who may not be able to afford food. And what we want to try to make sure is that with a lot of these food pantries and food resources, we know that certain times, people may think that, oh, you have to be below the federal poverty limit to access these resources. But we also understand that even individuals, what we call in the ALICE group, or asset limited income constrained employed, a group of individuals who are above the poverty level, but are still not able to afford basic food items. We all struggle, a lot of people struggle with being able to afford food,
Right.
and there are food resources, food pantry that are available to provide those food needs. Um, and we want to make sure that we remove the stigma associated with seeking help and getting help
Mhm.
as much as possible. So I want to make sure I answered the question with the cost of food.
Can you talk
Yeah.
about isn't there a container gardening program that you talked about at LHIC that I thought was just so interesting?
Right. And well, one of the things that we are trying to do as we work with communities, we are looking to see what what do you want and what are you able to do? Are you able to do a community garden? Do you have the space? If you do not have the space, could you potentially look into setting up like a container garden where you have little pots and you grow plants and then you share it with each other? So that's something that we are trying at the Owen Brown place, where
Mhm.
we are piloting a container garden with the help of the University of Maryland Extension Master Gardeners to help us to help the residents plant and then share with each other. And then when they get the produce, what do they do with it? How do they prepare it? How do they preserve it? So we are leaning a lot on our partners
Mm.
and residents to help us with this. And the whole point with this is we're trying to get others to do similar things to help also with the cost of the fruits and vegetables we know um, cost
Right.
a lot. And so that is something that that would help with that. And we want to kind of encourage that. And two, for folks who actually grow fruits and vegetables in their yard, you're able to also donate excess to the food bank and food pantry.
Mhm.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned too that we know that there's definitely some gaps that we need to fill in that space. So I think part of it is understanding what the gaps are and working towards it. So it's not a question, but it's more so just saying that people are acknowledging, especially the county, how to look at these gaps and help. So you guys have great resources. Definitely go on to lhic.org and be able to, did I say that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
hclhig.org.
Yeah.
Because what happened is that so oftentimes, people may think, oh, I have I have food, my tummy is full, I'm good. But oftentimes that's not the case. It's what is in the tummy. We want to make sure it's the right food that's in the tummy, because what we're seeing, from the health department's perspective, we're seeing diabetes, hypertension, we're seeing all these chronic conditions. And then we want to try to make sure we go to the root cause to help individuals, prevent them from getting there. But then while you are there, how do you eat low salt meals? How do you eat more fruits and vegetables to help you manage your
Right.
chronic conditions?
That's good. You have another one? Look at that. Okay. Oh, have you thought about offering cooking classes to help residents learn how to cook healthier? Oh, that's awesome. Do we have that? Is that around?
I'm Jamaican, and there are certain things that I know that I make at home that are significantly less expensive than certain things like boba. You get a big bag, it's like $3. You can serve your family for a very long time. It's a little less expensive. It's protein packed. You replace it with rice, and I was vegan. So there are so many other healthier things and less expensive things to make. But 90% of the time, people don't even know what it is because it's not an American product, but they don't get the option to taste it until someone mentions it to them and tells them about it. And give them the option to try it, and then they end up using it.
That's a great point. I do think that being able to open up your mind on what it is that you try, what it is that you use and cook with. And I think too, that's another part of that social emotional wellness where you're with people. And I do know that there are classes around. I haven't taken any, but they are around. So you could definitely look for those. This other question I had, which I thought was interesting, was about introverts. So what this person didn't hear a lot about was how introverts, with a capital T, how they enjoy being by themselves, or what ways can they participate, even though they may not necessarily want to be in a group fitness setting or with people, or yes, Miss May.
And my son were integrated with two capital times. I was integrated with two capital T's. And I was always concerned about them wanting to be alone and not being, hopping on our hop. And all, and my husband, we were married 32 years when he passed. He had a wonderful one. He said, I'll tell you, we are, I said, are you okay? Are you trying to get him to come out of the right. And the thing that I found, my son, he lives with me now. And he said, Mom, you worry about them, I'm happy. And I'm happy. He said, I would never be another Navy Eagle. He didn't understand that. He said, now when there are things I want to do, because I got to drag him along with me every place I go. Because I want him to feel like he's safe and be around people and be socially involved. Sure. But what I found, I had to back off because he said, Mom, I'm happy. I like being alone. I like music. I like cooking. He's the only child. He has to be alone. But my point was saying that was that people think that you're introvert, you want to move on the time to go. And you may be okay, because when during COVID, we couldn't go out, so we got to learn that a little more. But he put 14,000 pictures in house. He went
That could be a good question then for Dr. Abby, when you're dealing with folks that are really introverted and not necessarily interested in the social.
Yeah, sometimes we can start to pathologize, our differences. Like I said, I'm an introvert, and introversion is just, and extroversion is just a different way of how we get our energy and we feel like sort of satisfied in life, Introversion is not the same as isolation. Now, isolation is like cigarette smoking to our well-being. That is a very different thing than introversion. These are just kind of temperament styles, the kinds of ways we prefer our relationships and our interactions, and even our activity level, but that's a very different thing from isolation. Whether we're introverted, extroverted, or what they also say is ambivert, which is kind of in the middle, isolation is still going to be pretty detrimental for our mental health and our overall well-being, and you can be introverted and not be isolated, Yeah.
Well, before we go, I think those are, first of all, thank you for your questions, because you didn't have to ask them. So we appreciate your participation and we know you're listening. So that's awesome. But also, I would like each of you to just give something, a takeaway that you want folks to walk away with tonight before we end. What do you want people to leave here with, Tavia?
Find a way to move that you like, right? If someone's telling you have to do X, unless you're training for something very specific, and you need to achieve certain things, explore a lot of different things, and a little bit is okay if that's what you got time for. And little increments are okay. And if you can, do it with people, but if you don't like moving with people, that's fine too. Just move and find a way to enjoy moving.
Okay, Dr. Abby?
I would say that movement, whether it's a marathon or it's meditation, is medicine.
That's great. And Rena?
And I would say small changes with food, experimentation with food is it's amazing, and it will go a long way hand in hand with the movement, I would say, and checking up on each other, asking about how you're doing and how you're feeling.
That's great. Well, the last thing I would say is go do something. There are so many things that are happening in our community that we don't know about. So check the count. I know Columbia has 1,000 calendars. So shameless plug, go to ColumbiaInspiredMagazine.com. We go out and we find events that we think are fun and interesting for you to do. Go do something. Don't say it's boring here. It's not. There's things to do. You just have to be willing to look for them, because I promise you, you will find something in your lane. Thank you all for coming, and I think we're done. Or no, you got one more? Oh, please announce.
Yes. Can we have a round of applause for this panel, please? Thank you. That was an awesome conversation. Just a few housekeeping notes. You may have seen on your chair, you have a feedback card. If you could take a few moments before you leave and then turn them in at that Q&A table, to the lovely ladies over there, that would be great. That really just helps us set us up for success in the future, particularly if you have something that you want to see a change in Columbia about. Definitely put that down, because that's certainly something we're interested in. All of you on Zoom, we'll get you a link. I have all of your emails, and we'll get you a link to that, an online survey. You can visit columbiaassociation.org/change for information on this and future events. So we'll have a recording of this again. I'll try to get everybody the link as long as you were registered and we have your email, I'll get you that link as well so you can share it with everybody. So once again, you put in the effort tonight. Thank you for your commitment. You're welcome to stay and chat for a little bit, but if we could just keep it moving a little bit so the fine folks at the other barn can get on with their evening as well, that would be great. Grab a snack for the road. So thank you again so much for being here.